All right, man, peace. You know, brothers, as I pay attention to this Odell Beckham narrative with the New York Giants, it's becoming more and more apparent to me that they are going to have to pursue a trade and move Mr. Odell Beckham to a team who can handle him. Because if we truly evaluate this situation, Odell is upset because Eli Manning is the quarterback. This is also a power play on the part of Odell. He's the highest paid player on the team. He's also the most forefront player on the team, meaning what? He's viewed as being the player who represents the New York Giants. He's their proverbial ambassador, whether they like it or not. And he wants Eli out because Eli Manning is still a threat to him. In the recesses of his mind, of course, he's not going to say that up front and outright. But Eli Manning is a threat to him in regards to being the most preeminent New York Giant, so he wants him out. In addition to that, Eli Manning cannot play any longer. Now, if Odell Beckham was 20 or 21 years old, I think that there would have been a higher chance or a higher probability that they would keep him. But because he's 25 years old and the New York Giants really are at a nexus point where they're going to have to remove Eli Manning and then draft another quarterback. Now, you bring in a young quarterback, 21, 22 years old, and it's going to take him a couple of years to develop. Odell Beckham is 25 years old. Is Odell going to be patient enough in the prime of his career to allow a young quarterback to develop while his best years are being marginalized, are being minimized? Because as of right now, we know that Odell's one of the most physically gifted, physically talented wide receivers in the NFL. He's only averaging 11 yards a catch. So I'm sure that he's saying to himself, I'm not being used to my optimum. All of that, to me, is going to come together, and the New York Giants are going to have to decide to move Odell Beckham. And then on top of that, they already have another young player who, in my view, and also in their view, will probably be a better ambassador, a better representative for what they want the overall culture of their franchise to be, that being Mr. Saquon Barkley. So, of course, they're going to talk about it. I'm going to chime in.
Collins, it's week 7 of the NFL season, and the Giants are 1-5. One would assume that at this point of the season, the team would be coming together. However, it seems that the G-men are doing quite the opposite. Quarterback Eli Manning was asked how his teammates are handling the negative comments being said about the team.
Hey, that's always a challenge, and it's just a challenge to try to focus on the things that you can control, and that's us.
Well, what you can control is whether or not you retire Eli Manning, because you're finished. And I had a lot of Eli Manning New York Giants fans who got upset with me in the video that I did with Mr. Victor Cruz, and I stated point blank that Eli Manning, I told the truth. He's been in the NFL for about 15, 16 years. He's only had about 4 good seasons. 2 out of those 4 good seasons, they won the Super Bowl. So it makes him look greater than he was. If Eli Manning was not a Manning, if his name was Eli Smith, he would have been out of the NFL many, many moons ago. Believe me.
That's us and our your assignments, the game, going out there and playing well, and keep the focus on that, and we'll be okay.
And to add on to the negative press, Odell Beckham Jr.'s dad's latest comments on Instagram may not help the situation.
Well, Odell Beckham Jr.'s dad is never going to help a situation because, as we can see, he did not do a great job of making sure that his son conducts himself with an appropriate amount of comportment. That's why I say I don't blame Odell Beckham for a lot of his conduct. When you look at his father's one of these guys who's 48, 49 years old and acts like he's 22. So how much wisdom could he have imparted upon Odell Beckham? And then on top of that, you have the monarch athlete angle. And it's very obvious to me that Odell Beckham is a monarch athlete. I've been telling you brothers this for about a year now. He is an agent of chaos. There are many clues and hints and triggers in regards to you being able to understand what Odell Beckham is, as long as you're familiar with a lot of these mechanisms. When you look at Odell, he has the blonde hair for Hippocrates. He's an agent of chaos sent to the NFL, number 13. So you're always going to hear about him. He has many handlers. Drake, this guy Lil Wayne, they're all Luciferians, man. So you're always going to hear about Odell being at the 0 point of a lot of trouble. He's that clown god, as he was known by the ancient Aztecs, Tezcatlipoca. He's always going to be in the midst of it. That's why they venerate the Joker, whether it's in tarot or things of that nature. The Joker has almost divine powers because he can create chaos. And of course, you can engineer society by bringing order out of chaos. And that's what Odell's trying to do right now with the Giants. He's trying to run his mouth. Hopefully he can instigate them to change certain things on the team so that he can shine a little more. But once again, as long as Odell is in the spotlight, he's always going to be somebody who's going to be causing all type of drama.
OBJ's father had his thoughts on Giants co-owner John Mara's comments that his son should do more playing, less talking. Beckham's father posted on Instagram a video showing Mara pushing a chair in frustration, and he wrote in part, "Is that owner Mara picking up a chair and throwing it? Oh my, the tree is acting like the apple. Listen, this is not the White House. We have comprehending cellular activity. Don't even try it." He's mad at how Odell is acting, so he does the same? You couldn't make this up if you tried. Let's get you back to First Take.
Going down on the gram. Now it's Odell Beckham Sr. getting in on the action. On that note, let's bring in our friend Louis Riddick from NYC. Louis, what's going on?
Not too much.
What all this is adding up to in my mind is, once again, they're going to pursue moving Odell Beckham in the offseason. Because there's no way that Odell is going to allow himself to come back to that franchise, and Eli Manning is still the quarterback. I'm not quite sure what Eli Manning's contractual obligations are with the New York Giants after this season, but I guarantee you they are going to be looking to move Odell after this. So it's really just a matter of which teams across the NFL will want him or can use him.
I'm just jealous of y'all being out there on the West Coast, that's all.
Yeah, you are.
Yeah.
Max, I'm going to start with you. Was that inbounds or out of bounds? His dad now getting in on it.
It was inbounds. You publicly go at someone, guess what? Their father might take up for them. Look, I know in Lewis that you're a prospective GM and a football executive, and in fact...
And let me say this. When you read the tweet or the message or whatever it was that Odell Beckham Sr.'s father sent, it's not out of bounds. I agree with Max Kellerman on that. But just for you to send that, you have to understand as a father that you're going to be amplifying the situation involving your son and the owner of the franchise. So you have to ask yourself, how much do I really want my son to be there? So if you were to put yourself in Odell Beckham Sr.'s place and you hit send on that, you have to be saying to yourself, if you're operating with even a modicum of wisdom, that when I send this message, this might assist my son in getting traded in the offseason. I mean, because if you're not thinking like that, then you're not thinking. Because you're only going to make it harder for your son in regards to how he's viewed by the franchise. That's if you and your son actually want to continue playing as a member of the New York Giants.
You know, the Giants would have done well to hire you, and I thought they did well to hire Gettleman. But I understand how a GM must feel. Look, I don't need the guy who we just paid all this money to, first chirping and then his father chirping at the owner, the guy who gave him the money. But does the GM need the owner chirping?
Right, but did the owner really give him the money, or did the owner just pay him what he thought he was worth? I mean, all this stuff about the owner giving him the money, this is a fair exchange. And this is why they're both frustrated. They're both frustrated because Mara's like, why are you talking about stuff that I already know? The top of my head is wet. I don't need you to tell me that it's raining. That's Mara's attitude. That's why he's upset with Odell. Because he wants a leader who knows how to keep things in-house. That's why, once again, I believe that they're going to try to shift over to Saquon Barkley as the new representative of the team in the offseason. Watch for that.
Chirping? Does the GM need the owner chirping? Well, the GM says, well, he's the owner. He can say what he wants. And so can Odell's father. I know the idea of respect for authority is not only culturally important to us, but especially in the NFL, it's important to us. But that doesn't mean, if people might prefer it that way, that it's out of bounds for someone's family member to give their opinion.
Max, you don't think it's embarrassing his dad is coming into his defense?
Look, I didn't like it when Eli Apple's mother got into it. I don't like it when, and although she has a job in the profession,
the media.
I don't like it when Odell's father gets into it as a fan of the...
It's just not wise. It's simply not wise. Right now, if you're Odell Beckham Jr. and Sr., you need to batten down the hatches unless, once again, you're trying to instigate the New York Giants to trade you.
You know, the Giants, myself personally, but is it in or out of bounds? Well, Mr. Mara can say what he wants. Mr. Mara. Guess what? So can Mr. Beckham. Particularly if someone's talking about his son. Not out of bounds.
Odell Beckham Sr. was out of bounds. I say that respectfully.
He was out of bounds in regards to him speaking in such a way, but he was not out of bounds in regards to what he said, because what he said was the truth. But sometimes we have to parse out the truth according to a certain understanding, and that involves prudence. You have to be prudent with the truth, because the truth is very, very powerful.
Here's why he was out of bounds. This situation with Odell Beckham Jr., this isn't the first time that the Giants have had an issue with him, nor is it the first time the Giants have said anything about him.
Nor will it be the last. Nor will it be the last time that they have to say something about him.
He had nothing to say until his son got his money. That's why it's out of bounds. Do you hear?
Well, not quite, Stephen A. Smith. Not quite, but I understand where you're going. Of course, it's more likely that he's going to speak now that his son got the money, and it also makes it more tenable for them to talk like this, because now they can demand a trade. The contract is already mostly guaranteed, so they know that they're going to get the bulk of the money anyway. So I understand what you're saying in regards to that. But Odell Beckham Jr. and Sr., if you see how they conduct themselves, I'm not quite sure if they're bracketed in by an understanding of we're not going to speak until we get the money, or we're not going to show out until we get the money. Odell been showing out for the last 3 years.
Because here's my point. If you're coming off of principle, then it's principle. It shouldn't be, now that my son got his money, I can stick up for him. If that's how you feel, and your son is the elite talent we all know him to be, because Odell Beckham Jr. is big time, okay? Then, excuse me, if you felt like it was out of bounds before, you should have said something before.
Well, Stephen A. Smith, when is the last time that the owner publicly addressed or verbally attacked Odell Beckham?
Well, he wanted his money.
Well, again, that's my point. So it's not based on principle, it's based on convenience. And all I'm saying to you is that for me, again, it's not like, and we've said this on many occasions, Odell Beckham Jr. is 31 other teams in the NFL. If the Giants didn't want him, somebody else was going to want him. So it's not like he could have ended.
Not necessarily, Stephen A. Smith. Not necessarily. Once again, the Giants were pursuing a trade with the LA Rams, or I should say, the LA Rams wanted Odell. They performed a very comprehensive investigation on Odell Beckham's habits, what he likes to do in his off time, and they decided no, we'll pass. Once again, to me, that's rather glaring. The LA Rams are a team that acquired Marcus Peters and Aqib Talib. Aqib Talib is a football player who has been involved in in gunfights, damn near, or allegedly. Let me specify, his gun went off in his pants, supposedly, and he shot himself. Aqib has been involved in a lot of fracases and issues, and they picked him up with no problem. So what was it that they found out about Odell Beckham Jr.?
End up elsewhere. All I'm trying to say is that you have to remember that when you get paid, and I've said this at times in the past, it's not about just being a company person or whatever the case may be. It's about understanding that there's an element of trust that comes into the equation. If Mr. Mara,
there he goes, the boy god of mischief, Harpocrates, just flipping out, a.k.a. Cupid,
had a conversation with Odell Beckham Jr., and he said, this is the Giant.
That's who they're going to change over in regards to leadership. Once again, watch for that. You're going to start to see, if you're a Giants fan, you're going to start to see a lot less of Odell Beckham being the person that they want to turn to for information or insight in regards to what the team should be doing, and they're going to start to turn more towards Saquon.
Giants way. And if I'm going to give you this money, this is what I need from you. And Odell Beckham Jr., who, by the way, is a grown young man, looked this man in the face and agreed that this is how we were going to do things. And then he betrayed that. And I'm not saying I know that to be the case, because I don't know. And I certainly support Odell Beckham Jr. in terms of, the kind of nonsense that he has to deal with. So a lot of stuff I think is overblown by him. But you don't need daddy getting involved any more than you need mommy getting involved. It's a bad look. And it's especially a bad look when a grown man who obviously did a good job raising his son and loves his son, okay, wants to speak up for him. If you want to speak up for him so badly, then it shouldn't be easier for you to do now that he got paid. It should have been easier for you to do before when you thought your son was
about one of my daughters.
Well, once again, Stephen A. Smith, you would have to provide some level of precedent where the owner of the New York Giants was speaking with as much vitriol as he recently came out with against Odell, and Odell Beckham Jr.'s dad did not say anything. I partially agree with you. Don't get it twisted. I partially agree with you. Of course, it's much more convenient for him. But I think that most people operate in life according to a certain aspect or element of convenience. You go ahead and go to work every day and you have a boss that you don't particularly like, who you may feel like is incompetent. Your last week there, you put in your 2 weeks notice. Your last week there, you might have a little bit more lip than you had before you put in that 2 weeks notice.
And watch what happens.
Exactly.
Talk about one of my daughters and watch what happens.
Let me ask you a question.
Your daughters are 9.
Well, when they're grown, talk about it. Watch what happens.
Before we go to Louis Riddick, I ask a simple question, because to me, you just made my point. Talk about your daughter. Talk about my daughter. It's not going to be like this. Oh, now that we got their money, I can speak up. I'm going to speak up automatically. I'm not going to wait. That's what I'm talking about with Odell Beckham Sr. He waited until his son got paid, and that's what makes him look questionable.
Louis,
Well, could it be, once again, could it be that he waited until his son got paid because he knows now his son has secured the bag, so he can assist his son in provoking as much chaos as possible and hopefully instigating a trade? Stephen A. Smith, have you thought about that?
let's get in on this.
Yeah, I would say, first of all, I kind of agree with Stephen A. with what you're saying, and because I said this from the very get-go, that this whole issue concerning the Giants and Odell Beckham before he got his contract was strictly about trust. This is what they were worried about once he got his money, whether or not all the things that he was doing is...
Well, Louis Riddick, I have news for you, sir. Based off of the 3 years of precedent that Odell Beckham established, if your issue is trust, then you're a damn fool. That's like a woman saying to herself, you know what? I'm going to marry this guy even though he's been quote-unquote cheating on me for the last 5 years. And I'm going to trust that he's going to stop after we get married. If you guys get married and he's still sleeping around and doing whatever, you cannot blame him. You can only blame yourself. It's the same thing with the Giants and Odell Beckham. So this notion of trust is not about trust. What it was always about was box office. Their attitude is Odell Beckham is box office. And then on top of that, the New York Giants owners, they're well aware of the monarch athlete concept. Of course they are. Most of these top level owners, these owners all across the sports world, they know about the monarch athletes. They know about what they can do. So you're not going to allow one of them to go unless you absolutely have to let him go.
As far as showing up at OTAs, kind of like making everybody believe that he is the team guy. And I'm not saying he's not the team guy, but kind of like just towing the line, saying the right things, doing the right things, making sure that the team came first, that he just wanted to be a Giant. Look
at this guy. This guy's bugged out of his damn mind. Proposing to the damn kicking net. This is the same jackass sitting down with LeBron James talking about how he feels like a zoo animal.
He wanted to do what was best for the organization. Of course he wanted to get his money, but he was about the team, about being a Giant. They were worried about the fact that once he got the security that he was looking for, that then maybe, things would kind of unravel when maybe some adversity would hit and things.
Also, let me say this as well, brothers. Whenever it comes to these MK Ultra athletes or any of these MK Ultra subjects, period, any of these monarch children, period, always watch for their self-destruct programming to kick in somewhere around the age of 30, 31, 32 years old.
Things would kind of start going astray. This is what they were worried about. And it's not necessarily him at this point that we're talking about. We're talking about his father. Now, you're right. His father is chiming in. And as someone who is a father, and as someone who would definitely stick up for their children, in this case, what exactly did John Mara say that would prompt a father of a guy who is in the National Football League who just got paid this amount of money to kind of step in right now?
Louis.
Well, I know what John Mara stated that would have kind of provoked Odell Beckham Sr. to speak his mind. John Mara basically stated that Odell Beckham needs to play better. And I'm sure that Odell Beckham Sr. is saying, how could you point the finger at my son when he has to wait on the football from that bullshit-ass quarterback with that bullshit-ass offensive line that you assembled or that you allowed your GM to assemble? We all know that the wide receiver position is the most dependent position in all of football, if not in all of sports. So for you to say Odell Beckham has to play better, you would have to list all the times that Odell Beckham had big drops and big moments where he did not make the play that he was supposed to make. As of right now, he has not even had a lot of the opportunities that he should have to make big plays because of the poor quarterback play and the poor offensive line play. So that's why Odell Beckham Sr. was so upset. For John Mara to say that he wants Odell Beckham to make headlines for his playmaking on the football field as opposed to what he's saying, that's basically John Mara saying that Odell Beckham Jr. has not been playing up to snuff. So that's why Senior got upset.
Louis, hold on for a second, because I want to read the quote for America about what this man is so offended by. John Mara said, quote, "I wish he would create headlines by his play on the field as opposed to what he says and what he does off the field. I think he needs to do a little bit more playing and a little less talking." That's all he said.
Right. He's criticizing Odell's play, and Odell's very criticism of the team is he's not in a position to make plays.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Max Kellerman. You're the only one. You're the only one who was able to come to that conclusion. I have no idea why these other two guys were unable to do the same.
Because they don't have a quarterback.
No, right, but you know what?
And they also don't have an O-line.
And you know what? And that's fine. That's fine. He can make those criticisms. But look, we all know this. Look, we live in an age right now where everybody likes to soundbite. Everyone wants players to be, very open and honest and kind of be raw with how they feel about things. But let me just tell you this. Inside locker rooms and inside organizations, that doesn't do anything for what they're trying to do.
I agree with that, especially in the world of football. Football is a world where people who are me players, they don't really help their team. They really only hurt the team. Because football as a sport is so militaristic. It's really so much about you just playing your role and playing your position. All that rah-rah shit is very overrated in football. I mean, of course, you have a Tom Brady who's a rah-rah guy, but I always like Joe Montana above Tom Brady, and Joe Montana was not a rah-rah guy. So it's really about you just doing your job.
They're trying to win football games. They're trying to bring 53 guys together.
Look at this guy. Look like he's about to explode.
As a collective unit and win football games and win Super Bowls. That's what they're trying to do. And the kind of comments that Odell made concerning whether or not he was happy being a Giant, whether or not he was involved in the offense the way he should be, whether or not he was getting the amount of targets he should be getting, whether or not his quarterback was on par or rather good enough for them to get to where they really needed to get to, those are not the kind of comments that are going to play well in the locker room. They don't do anything for you. They don't do anything for an organization. They do a lot for us. It gives us a lot to talk about. It does nothing for them.
Let me just add one thing, Stephen A. And it's just Josina Anderson did say the team greenlit the interview, so they were aware of him doing this.
Yeah, she tweeted at me that I got that wrong the other day.
I want to put that on the record, so they let him talk.
That's right. That's true. You're absolutely right. But let me also say this to piggyback off of Max's point. This man, John Mara, did not go on the record and say Odell Beckham Jr. is playing like trash. His exact words were, "I wish he'd make more news with his play on the field than with talking." So what?
Right, but Stephen A. Smith, what does that really mean? What are we to infer from that statement?
So what he's implying is not that, oh my goodness, Odell Beckham Jr. is playing like trash and it's all his fault. He's saying you're more newsworthy for what's happening off the field.
Wait, you guys,
and that's my problem with it. That's what Mara is saying.
Look, as far as this topic is concerned, Lewis, I agree with you, and Stephen A. for that matter, generally with the topic. The way we phrased this question is Odell Beckham's father out of bounds with his comments. Now, should Odell be chirping? No, nor do I think he should apologize for something if he doesn't mean it. But should he have chirped in the first place? Would I prefer it? If he were making noise with his play on the field, yes, I would prefer it. But once he said what he said, and the owner says what he says, then the father's not out of bounds.
I agree in regards to the truthfulness of what the father stated, but just from a purely discretion or prudence perspective, he should have just withdrawn. He should have let Odell Beckham know, or I should say, he should have let his son know. Look, we're just going to play it cool right now. Unless this is part of their plan to get into a little bit of a back and forth and hopefully instigate a trade. We'll see. Now, Odell Beckham Jr. seems to have withdrawn himself a little bit when asked certain questions about the owner and things of that nature. So, who knows? But look for that. Look for the Giants to try to move Odell after the season.
I'm saying, time out.
But let me ask you this, Max.
You can defend his son.
Lewis, before you chime in. Hold on, Lewis. Before you chime in. Max, my point is, the man, this is not the first time something has been said about Odell Beckham Jr. It did not.
Right, but this is the first time that I can remember where the owner made these statements about Odell Beckham Jr., Stephen A. Smith. I don't think that senior's going to go back and forth with the media, because what really does he have to gain by doing that? But when it comes to the owner, what he may have to gain, or what his son may have to gain, is that maybe that might put a little bug into the ear of the owner to consider trading him. Because once again, the New York Giants right now are in the position where how useful is an Odell Beckham to you? Do you really want him on your team right now? I mean, other than for box office. I mean, he's the #1 box office attraction, maybe in all the NFL. You can certainly argue that he's right there with the Tom Bradys and the Aaron Rodgers and a lot of these other guys in regards to just being box office. But since when are the New York Giants in the box office business? They're one of the more highly touted franchises in the NFL. Normally, they're about keeping things buttoned up and winning. Odell Beckham's antics seem to be more consistent with playing for the Dallas Cowboys or a team like that, or the Pittsburgh Steelers. At least how the Steelers are currently constituted in regards to what they're allowed to do. But I just see them trying to move him. He's 25 years old. Either they keep Eli Manning, and he has to suffer through another 2 or 3 years playing with Eli, or they draft a new quarterback, and Odell has to wait for that new quarterback to mature. And then by then, he's 28 years old. And I just don't see him playing that Larry Fitzgerald role.
Escape me that he did not say anything when Odell was trying to get his money. So then it's not about principle. It's about convenience.
Or it's about a little bit of both, as it usually is with everybody.
And that is where, to me, he falls a bit awry.
So what if it's what? So what? So what if it's a belief that he doesn't want to give through his son's money?
But I think when you're 23 years old, it's embarrassing when your dad comes.
Max Kellerman asked a very good question. He says, so what if it's about him making sure that his son gets his money? Well, you're correct, Max Kellerman, but remember, Stephen A. Smith has to act like he's a lion that roars whenever he needs to. When we know that is not the case, that is not the fact. As I always state, when ESPN put him in his place with that situation where he decided that he was going to tell women to not instigate any domestic disturbances with their man, and they suspended him for 2 weeks, he came back. He came back like a little cub with his tail between his legs. And as I tell you guys all the time, there are a lot of women at ESPN who could get Stephen A. Smith fired. Do not get it twisted. He's the most famous person at ESPN. Might be the most highly paid. Might be, but then again, who knows? Maybe he's not. But he's certainly the most famous person at ESPN. And there are a bunch of women who can get him fired if they wanted to. If they wanted to run his name through the mud with all type of wild allegations, they could take one of his wild statements and try to take it anywhere they want to take it.
Comes to your defense. Like, I don't think Odell's got to be excited about that.
Well, okay, that's a separate question. But was his father out of bounds? Odell can control everything his family does?
Look, forget all that. Bottom line is this. If you are Odell Beckham Jr., if you're Odell Beckham Sr., when you choose to say something to this man after he got the money, that makes you look bad.
All right.
Once again, Stephen A. Smith, if his father had spoken up before Odell got the money, you'd be the same guy on TV saying, why would you do this to your son when he's negotiating for a new contract? Shouldn't you wait until after he signs it? Now he's speaking up after, and you're saying that he looks bad that way. Either way, I don't really have a problem with what Odell Beckham Sr. stated. I don't particularly like that he's saying something right now, because it's going to add more fuel to the fire surrounding his son. Unless, once again, as I've been stating repetitively in this video, unless that's part of their plan to set up a possible dynamic where Odell could be traded.
Because it makes it look like it was about the money.
Of course it's
about it. Who's paying?
Guys.
Yeah, but so he's got it already, so now he can say what he...
Absolutely, Max Kellerman. It's already guaranteed. It's not like they could take it away.
Say what he wants.
But we're really out of time. Lewis, appreciate you. Good to talk to you. We'll see you in New York next week.
Yep.
But anyway, that's basically it on that in regards to this Odell Beckham narrative. But brother, just pay attention to the background. As I tell you all the time, the overall energy behind most of these talk shows and most of these television shows and movies, period, is Luciferianism. Look just to the left of Max Kellerman's head. Of course, it's supposed to depict some type of an amusement park. But you can see hidden within that image is the pyramid, and the top of the pyramid is radiating to show illumination. But anyway, peace.